Hello everyone. A warm welcome to a fresh edition of Your Image, the only public relations program on television in Africa. My name is Folarin. Today, 33 years ago, something great happened in the world. Though it was not actually actualized, but later, with events, it metamorphosed into our Democracy Day. Happy Democracy Day. My guest today, who will help us to unpack the public relations lessons from June 12, is a political scientist and a public affairs analyst, Alhaji Mojeed Sorinola. Alhaji Sorinola, you're welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, Pastor Folarin. It is Democracy Day. It is our day. Thank God we are witnessing today, which is the 33rd year when the day was battered.
Yeah, let's go back memory lane. Did you vote on June 12, 1993? Did you vote?
Of course I did. Okay. There was hardly any adult of voting age that wouldn't have voted. That tells you the groundswell of mobilization, the late stage, if I may use that language, the material of democracy, Chief Mojeed Olawale Abiola, he mobilized like nobody ever did. And that was possible for some of us who went out to vote. Yes, I did vote.
Okay, it is how it is. The military, they're back in the barracks, and 27 years on, we've had our democracy. Yeah. First of all, what's your impression about the 27 years that we spent having democratic rule in Nigeria?
Well, let me say to God be the glory that at least our democracy has been in, on. Nothing has affected it, even though it has not come out the way many people expected.
Right.
And that is why, to some people, they will tell you what you have is not actually democracy. They want to argue that what we have been having since then is civil rule. That thank God we have been ruling ourselves away from what we used to have when we had military rule. But to some of us, democracy, yes, no matter how imperfect it is, it has been on for 27 years, unbroken, undeterred, and it is intact.
Okay, let's briefly look at the missed opportunities. What could have happened? We had 2 political parties then. Yeah. Rather than now that we have 24 political parties. What would have happened if we had stayed with that paradigm that we had then, SDP and RC?
Let us give it to Babangida, even though he has a lot of negatives. But Babangida had that vision of ensuring that we mirror what had been happening in America. You agree with me that America has been running multi-democracy, multi-party anyway. But 2 parties have been dominant all along. That is the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. I think that was what informed Babangida's idea of coming up with those 2 parties, the SDP and the NRC. And if he had not committed that Fox pass, that error of annulling that election, if Babangida had allowed that election to stay, it still would have been in gold, written in gold today, because one, it would have been credited with the goal of ensuring democratic governance, and then more importantly, organizing the most the freest, the one that had the least of imperfections, the freest election in Nigeria ever, even up to today as we speak. Babangida will have taken away that glory. And then thirdly, it will have been credited with the fact that he deliberately brought about that paradigm whereby we have 2 major parties, just like we have in America. But as imperfection will have it.
It is.
So he lost it. He lost everything.
Right.
He lost it. And up to today, people still have it against him.
Yeah, former President Muhammadu Buhari gave us this day as Democracy Day.
Yeah.
That move from May 29 to June 12, do you think is a lovely one?
Well, it is very lovely. In fact, many of us have been agitating for Democracy Day to be moved away from May 29, because we all know that May 29 has no significance. It has no meaning.
It was just a date picked by the military.
Exactly. It was a military concussion that, okay, that was the day they handed over to civilians. But to most Nigerians, it was of no significance. So people agitated that, look, we have a date that has been etched in the memory of Nigerians, a date that has a lot of significance. It is a date that Nigerians forgot about their ethnic, tribal, religious differences. It was a day that Nigeria united against all odds, that Abiola, no matter his imperfections, SDP, no matter the imperfections of bringing on board a Muslim ticket,
right.
People still believe that religion does not matter. And that is supposed to be an ideal, the ideal all over the world. That religion is just a relationship between you and your God. Your ethnic background is not of your own making. It is simply because you are born from an ethnic area. So it shouldn't come into calculations of nationhood. So that day carries along with it a lot of significance, and it will have battered one united Nigeria without ethnic, without religious bias. But unfortunately, again, we lost it by virtue of the unfortunate annulment of that election.
Okay, 27 years down the line, would you say that citizens still don't trust this democracy? Some people call it demonstration of whatever, you know, and the various, so how can we build trust in this our democratic experiment?
Well, the best way rather to build trust is for us to have good governance. Well, when you talk about people losing trust in democracy, it is simply because people, they have seen the dividends as being elusive. In spite of all the promises, since democracy came back 27 years ago, people have had a lot of expectations. Hopes have been raised.
And dashed.
Aspirations have been raised and dashed. And that has to do not with democracy
itself
as a concept, as an idea, but it has to do with the managers of our democracy. The managers have not been fair to Nigerians, if you have to tell ourselves the truth. Because ordinarily, democracy is supposed to open doors. It's supposed to give opportunities to everybody. It's supposed to enhance freedom of thought, freedom of movement, freedom of expressing ideas. But what you have today is almost the opposite of it. And that is why, in the calculation of Nigerians, they think this democracy has not paid off. And that is why it is almost getting to a point whereby Nigerians are feeling that why this democracy?
Okay, a common mantra is that Rome wasn't built in a day. It's a learning curve. This is our 7th electoral cycle.
Yeah.
Are we getting it right?
Well, to some extent, to the extent that, yes, we still have democracy on course. We still have our democracy intact. We can say yes, to some extent, we are getting it right. But to the extent to which most Nigerians, like I said earlier, have been shortchanged. Because the truth is that this is not what Nigerians bargained for when they clamored for democracy. Most especially the Mataya, Chief MP Abiola again, and some other compatriots who fought with everything they had, who even laid their lives, who lost everything, because they had a vision that, look, democracy is the best form of government, like we have it. And that was why they went all out to fight for it. But today, some of them who are alive are regretting that, why did I even waste my time? Why did I waste my energy? Why did I waste my limb? Why did I put everything into this thing that has become almost an albatross? So democracy, if it has to pay its way, must be managed the way it is managed in the advanced world. Democracy has its own principles. It has its philosophy. It has its features, which if religiously followed, there is no way it will not bear
What are these
fruit.
features? What do you expect?
Thank
What do you
you.
want done?
Democracy, like we are told, is the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. So the first test of democracy is to ensure free and fair elections. Because the idea of democracy is of people submitting their freedom, submitting everything in what we call a social contract between the people and the governed, given the fact that, well, one of the days when we have what we call direct democracy, whereby in the Athens, where everybody participated. But the world have moved on to the extent that we all know that it's not possible by virtue of the largeness, the complexity, and what have you of the world. The best we can have, if we want to have representative democracy, is to entrust our will, our wishes, aspirations into the hands of the few. And that is the concept of elections. So if that must come to bear properly, then there must be a free and fair election that would mirror, that will represent the wishes and aspirations.
Are we not having the fair and fair election?
So the question is...
2015, a government in power lost power to opposition.
Well, that's a plus. But the truth is that that election has its own imperfections, like all other elections, apart from, again, the 1993 elections.
Is perfection not an ideal?
It's an ideal that should be worked towards.
Okay.
But it's like we are running away from the ideal in Nigeria. That's the problem. Because we know the ideal. We know that, well, ideal, well, is a construct that may not be gotten to. It's a relative term.
It is.
But we have seen nations move very close to it. No nations actually, even America, that is the bastion of democracy, they still have their issues, their problems.
Right.
But in fairness, we will see that America is one of the best democracies in the world. So the point is that why can't we try and mirror that one, as imperfect as it is? But you agree with me, Pastor, that our elections still carry a lot of imperfections. There is no doubt about it. So that's what I'm saying. Even if we are not going to the ideal, why don't we try and organize an election to start with that would represent the wishes of the people, so that people will be ready to trust that process, and those the process have brought about, just like in 1993.
Right.
You know that it was by virtue of the fact that Nigerians knew that, no, we voted for this person. That was why they were ready. Many people lost their lives, even deliberately, because they knew that, no, you can't take this thing, it's ours. But since then, unfortunately, we have not had any election that is close to it.
Okay, very quickly, what do you think is responsible for this apathy that most Nigerians know? We have over 90 million registered voters, and then just about 40 million votes.
30 something.
Yeah.
Well, the apathy is a product of the frustrations people have passed through over the years. Just like I said, people have not been able to sip what we commonly call dividends of democracy. They have not seen it, they have not sipped it. And that's a very big disincentive to voting. Then the fact that the perception out there is that our elections are not free and fair, whether rightly or wrongly. You know, perception is
reality.
It's everything. Like some people tell you, well, whether wrongly or rightly, but once that's the way you see it, it is. So the perception out there is that the elections have not been free and fair. And every person will tell himself that, why do I want to go through this process again, since the last one wasn't what I expected? So those two factors especially has been responsible for the apathy.
Okay, this is your image. You know, we're perception managers. How can we change this narrative? How can we change this perception? Because the desperation of some politicians about elections, even when they know that they've lost fairly, they still won't, you know, congratulate the next person. How can we have this culture of congratulating the supposed winner? We saw in the US an imperfect election, but they still congratulated each other.
Well, imperfection or perfection is relative. When we say the American election is imperfect, it is to some degree of imperfection. If you want to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, perhaps you will say America's election is imperfect to the extent of maybe 20%, because it has not attained that 100%, which is the real ideal. But in Nigeria, if you want to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe you will say like 70, 80% imperfection. Because it is very clear that a lot of, even right from, what's it called, registration, we see underage people registering. We see people doing multiple voting. We see in the process of declaring results that what obtained in the polling booth is not what eventually comes out. So the imperfections is so loud, if I may use that language, and so clear to the extent that people will quickly lose faith. But if it were like 10, 20%, even the 1993 elections, all of us are, glorifying. It's not as if it was 100%.
Right.
Because I remember, for example, Abiola went to the polling booth with his regalia, and it was termed as
the logo of the party.
Exactly, which, if we want to be realistic, shouldn't have been. So that's an imperfection. But the truth is that the imperfection is minimal. So what I would advise our leaders to do is to ensure that, one, we try as much as possible to, because perception, I've said it, is real. It's whatever people believe. And in PR, what we do is trying to manage the perception of the people, of an organization, of a person, of an idea. June 12th, thank God, has become an idea. Wonderful. And it's an ideal, which all of us would not want to forget in a hurry. Ideal to the extent that the elections was not perfect, but it neared perfection.
Right.
The election united Nigerians. Right. Nigerians voted without regard, without recourse to religion, to ethnic background, to tribal background. So Nigerians saw themselves as one. And that would have birthed one of the most united countries all over the world if that election has been allowed to stay. So the best we can advise for those in government today is to try and mirror that template. We have a template on ground. For example, even the option A4, it was the election that allowed it to happen, and it worked perfectly. So like I've argued on some occasion that why can't we try to go back and use some of these ideas, because they worked. And unfortunately, the ones we have brought to ourselves since then have not been working like most people expect. So that's the lesson in June 12th, that we had a template that was,
widely accepted.
A Nigerian concept.
Right.
Because that option, if I'm not sure it happened anywhere in the world, I'm not sure.
No, it's not. It's a general concept that used in elections.
But at least for the first time in Nigeria, that was when we used it, and it worked. The elections were termed to be free and fair to a very large extent. And then it mirrored the wishes and aspirations of Nigerians. And that was why people protested. People gave their life because they believed in that idea that this is our own. You cannot take it away from us. So if leaders today can go back, do a reflection that, look, you do not change a winning team, like we are told. We have a team, in quotes, that worked. Team in terms of the system, in terms of idea, in terms of template. And even up till now, that 3 years down the line, Nigerians are still wishing that we have a similar template.
Okay.
So why can't we go back to that template?
A common mantra says, a citizen get the kind of leadership that they deserve. We saw that option A4 was used during the party primaries, recently concluded party primaries, and we saw voodoo counting, 1, 3, 10. And this is it's citizens. These are citizens in action doing this. What do you say? What's your advice to citizens generally about how to get it right?
Well, citizens have a lot of responsibility. Let me start that way. Because it is citizens generally that make a nation. But the truth, like I've said on several fora, is that citizens are products of leadership. Or better put, the followership is a product of the leadership. Perhaps those guys who are counting, voodoo counting, were acting under instructions, perhaps. Perhaps they have seen it done by their leaders. Perhaps they feel that if they do it, no consequence will come. All these are perspectives of relationship between leaders and followers. So if, like, I believe that citizens have a lot of responsibility because they make nations, the leaders must lead. Leaders must show example. That's this thing we call leadership by example. You will not expect a follower to be responsible if a leader is not responsible. It's just like in the home.
Okay.
You don't expect the child to dictate to the parent.
The tail will not wag the dog.
It has never happened anyway. So that's a
Right.
simple analogy.
Okay, so let's speak to leadership now.
Yeah.
What do you expect our leaders to do, especially in setting good examples?
Yeah, like I said, it is all to our leaders. Like we say in management, everything rises and falls
With leadership.
With leadership. And no organization can develop, no family can develop, no community can develop. Talk less or talk more of a nation. Nations develop to the extent that their leaders want the nation to develop. If a leader is committed, if a leader is determined, if a leader is patriotic, if a leader has a will, no matter the challenges, that nation would grow, will move forward. But if a leader does not have those qualities, one, the fault lines of the leaders will impact negatively. Because like I said, leaders, followership mirror what their leaders do. So first and foremost, what matters most is for leaders to be conscious of their responsibility,
Right.
that they have a role to play, they have a nation to develop, they have people to make, because leaders make nations and make people. So leadership, to me, is the most important element as far as development is concerned. And when a leader is patriotic, hardly would the citizens not be patriotic.
Leadership is stratified. We are all leaders in our own level. So talking generally to citizens now, how can we make sure that we have responsible leadership?
Well,
The votes are coming now.
the responsibility of throwing up leadership is that of the people, provided the environment is conducive. Because when you talk about elections, it's not all about the people. Of course, the people are the ones that are going to vote. But more importantly, the process, the environment, the intention of the organizers of the election. June 12 again is an example that Nigerians came out in their numbers to vote, but the intention of the organizers were quite different from the aspirations of Nigerians.
Right.
So if Nigerians or people would perform their roles as expected,
Okay.
then those who are in charge of organizing elections must be responsible, they must be patriotic, they must give a very good enabling environment for the wishes, for the aspirations, and the sacrifices of the people. Because at times, going to vote is a sacrifice. Because at times people will tell you that, well, I cannot go and stay in the sun, I cannot go and stay in the rain for whatever. So that little exercise is a sacrifice to some people.
Okay.
And if it has to be done as expected, the people must be convinced
Right.
that the environment is right.
Right. There you have it. We've been looking at the public relations essence of June 12. It said June 12 is a template which must be followed to have a better Nigeria. I would like to thank you, Alhaji Mojeed Sorinola, for coming to the program. Thank you very much for coming to the program.
It's my big pleasure, Pastor. Thank you for inviting me.
That's it on the program for today. Until next week, when we come your way again with a fresh edition of the program. On behalf of the team, Aki Okudero, Bukola Akinride, Dara Adebimpe, and others, this is Dare Folarin saying bye for now.